Good evening and welcome to another episode of Political Roundup on VOP TV. I'm your host, Sumto Ajama. The Political Roundup is your premier destination for in-depth analysis of today's most critical political issues and their profound impact on society. Join us as we navigate the complexities of the political arena with our team of seasoned analysts, bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the forefront. Now, before we delve into today's discussions, we'll offer a comprehensive overview of the key topics shaping the political landscape, ensuring that you're well prepared and engaged and ready to engage with the day's most significant conversations. On today's episode, I am delighted to be joined by two esteemed guests. Here in the studio, we have with us Mr. Peter Anosike, a distinguished development economist, best-selling author, and national analyst. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us virtually is Dr. Joe Udiaja, a respected political affairs commentator. He'll be joining us in just a little bit. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
To be joining you today.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you. All right, let's go right into the stories. First, we begin with former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who has picked holes in the administration of President Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress, APC, during his first year in office. He described the period as a cocktail of trial and error economic policies. Despite Tinubu's promises to transform the economy and address issues like job creation, food security and poverty alleviation, Atiku, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) candidate in the 2023 presidential election, observed a worsening situation in the country. In a statement titled "Nigeria is not working, 1 year of Tinubu is a cocktail of trial and error economic policies," Atiku criticized President Tinubu for lacking a clear plan to remodel the economy and instead resorting to a mix of experimental policies. He lamented that Nigeria, Africa's leading economy, has slipped to the fourth position, lagging behind Algeria, Egypt, and South Africa, all within 12 months of Tinubu's administration. He noted that implementing policies without proper planning and a clear destination is nothing other than trial and error economics. So, by way of listening to that story, I'm sure you already know that Tinubu's administration has clocked 1 year in office, and there's a lot of analysis going around from people online and, of course, citizens alike. It is a very important subject to touch on. And coming back to what Atiku has said, calling Tinubu's 1 year in office a cocktail of trial and error economic policies, judging from the impact and downward slope that the Nigerian economy has gone, and the evident suffering of Nigerians, even the well-to-do are feeling the economic pinch, one just might be inclined to agree with him. To go just a bit further, the former president, Obasanjo, has also said that the removal of subsidy, closing the gap between black markets and official rates of exchange, are the two decisions that the president made for the economy that were necessary but wrongly implemented and have led to the impoverishment of the economy and of Nigerians. So I'm going to begin with you, Dr. Joe Udiaja. How would you rate the performance of the Tinubu administration so far? I want your response to that to be very short so I can take Mr. Anosike's and then we can go to the full meat of the conversation.
Well, right now, I will rate the economy of Tinubu, as you said. I will give it a C plus, okay, at this point. And I'm giving him that because I understand how Nigeria was before he took office. That's the downside. The upside, if you will, is that I have followed a number of things he's been doing, and I mean him in terms of his administration. And despite how bad things are, when I draw the graph of where Nigeria is approaching the peak of the problem, which means in a month or two, I would say actually maybe by end of August, they will be at that peak and then coming down. So I'll give him a C plus, short of giving him a B minus. That's where I will rate him at this point.
What Dr. Odiaja is saying. And I'll come to you, Mr. Anosike. What would your rating of President Tinubu's administration so far be? Before we talk about what Atiku has said.
Very, very disappointing. It is a colossal failure. If there's anything like minus F, that's what I would score him. Somebody watching Tinubu's administration would not believe that he had been a governor for 8 years. Because presidency is just a kind of expanding what you did as a governor. But the policy somersaults, understand me? You cannot believe that this man had governed a state before. You make a policy in the morning, in the evening, you either change or you discard. So for me,
a minus F.
It is a year of disappointment.
Okay. Well, you have heard what both Dr. Odiaja and Mr. Anosike has said, but to further buttress that point regarding the scores that they have rated the performance of the Tinubu administration, now let's talk about what Atiku has said and also what the former president, Obasanjo, has said. Atiku has said a cocktail of trial and error economic policies. And Obasanjo said the fact that the removal of subsidy and closing the gap between black market and the official rates of exchange were the two wrongly implemented policies that got us to where we are now. So my question to you, starting with you, Dr. Odiaja, talking about the cocktail of trial and error policies, Mr. Anosike obviously has said that he indirectly or directly agrees with that. But the point about those two policies, those two specific economic policies, the removal of subsidy and the closing the gap between black markets and official rates of exchange, would you agree, according to what former President Obasanjo has said, that those two policies were necessary but wrongly implemented? And do you think those are partly or fully what has got us to this point?
I agree that they were wrongly implemented, and let me say it with this caveat: they had to be done. When I say they were wrongly implemented, I am focusing more on the part that the public was not educated. The public was not prepared for what could happen. So I fault Tinubu administration there. But should they have been removed? Even if they were not removed immediately, by now they should have been removed, because subsidy was putting Nigeria to live where they did not belong. In other words, it was providing a fake or false sense of economy doing well, when in fact things were just bad. So it had to be removed. The key thing is, when you remove things like that, before you remove things like that the public has been, or anybody has been used to, even animals, you have to prepare them. And that's where I fault the administration. The communication was not well done. In fact, there wasn't really much communication. So in that way, I agree with Atiku. However, in generality of it, I don't know what Atiku was talking about, other than he's an opponent, a disgruntled opponent, I understand, because what he's saying in terms of his trial and error, I don't even understand it. I don't see a lot of much of trial and error here. What I see is a government that is that took over from things that were very bad, ready to blow up, to say, and they had to do things. And when you look at the key things they are doing, they are not transcending down to the public level yet, but they will. That is leadership. Leadership is not to make people happy. It is to say, what can we do to make the life of people better a year or even 6 months from now, the government is on target for Nigerians to start seeing things that they will say, okay, now we see what he was doing. So I do not agree with Atiku, but at the same time, Atiku is doing what an opponent would do, and that is not find anything good in the current, in the administration that defeated it.
Of course.
And so for that, he has his right to speak the way he did.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Coming on the heels of what Dr. Odiaja has said, he agrees with Obasanjo's assertions that those two policies, the removal of subsidy and the official exchange rate changes, were necessary but poorly implemented. But he completely disagrees with Atiku, pardon me, about the trial and error. What do you have to say concerning?
I want to say that Atiku Abubakar spoke like a statesman. He spoke the mind of 99% of Nigerians.
So you don't think it was just a disgruntled opposition speaking?
Atiku spoke the mind of 99% of Nigerians. What he said is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What Atiku said is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And he spoke the mind of 99% of Nigerians. There was no iota of politics in what he said.
So he's echoing what Nigerians are currently
the feeling of Nigerians, what Nigerians are going through. On the issue of Obasanjo, Obasanjo said that those two policies are necessary.
Yes, but they were poorly implemented.
Which is also 100%. A leader should know the consequences of an action which he wants to take.
Before he takes it?
Yes. You should ask yourself, if I take this action, what should be the consequence? This is the mistake that Tinubu did not make. And that's what is causing all the reversals in their policies.
The mistake that he made, you mean?
Reversals in their policies. Remember, there was one time they said that they'll be giving Nigerians about 10,000 naira a month.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
Nigerians kicked against it and they dropped it. So what Atiku said about trial and error is 100%. Understand? They have talked about this cyber and security levy and they stopped it. Then what else is trial and error? Understand me?
Of course.
So since he began, he has been, that's why I say nobody can believe that this guy has run a state.
From what he's currently, the way he's currently
because
leading.
Lagos is the largest economy in Nigeria. Lagos is mini Nigeria. Whoever rules Lagos can rule Nigeria. But with the way that Tinubu is behaving, nobody can believe that this man has run a state before. Understand? So a leader should know the consequences of his action. If I take this action, what should be the consequences? He did not think about that before removing subsidy. And if you go to him, he said that he was overcome with courage. Because the speech he read on that day,
yes,
there was no removal of subsidy in that speech. But he said as he was walking towards that podium, he was overcome with courage.
Which made him say that.
Which made him say that. Which means he didn't think it very well. It's just like somebody was going and intuition come. And that's what Nigerians have been suffering up to this point in time. And mind you, they are secretly paying that subsidy. If they are not paying it, fuel would have been sitting at 1,500 per litre by now. So what Atiku said is correct. What Obasanjo said is also correct. And they spoke as statesmen, nothing like this disgruntled at all.
All right. So this is the stance of one set of people. Atiku has spoken former president has spoken, and these are their takes on what they've experienced so far, what they think the people of Nigeria deserve and are not getting. But there's another group of people who believe completely differently. They're a group called the Nigeria First Project, and they're saying that Tinubu's 1 year has actually had tremendous success, particularly when it comes to addressing major security challenges in the country. And they added using a holistic approach. Now, permit me to say that this completely negates the data, and this data is actually clear, because according to 85 civil society organizations, they've shown that in the last 1 year since he assumed office, 4,416 Nigerians have been killed, 4,334 Nigerians have been abducted. And even the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, has said that over 2 million Nigerians have left the country in the wave of Japa. And a good amount of these people, from everything that has been said, from what critics are saying that insecurity and inflation, of course, is one of the reasons that they left. So if one set of people are saying there are some things that are critically wrong with this administration as of now, particularly as it relates to the economic policies, but one other set of people are not speaking economically, but they're talking about security and they're saying he has done well. What would you say about that, Dr. Odeja? What is your assertion on the performance of this administration when it comes to security? Because this is very critical for the average Nigerian.
It is not about satisfying public sentiments, okay? What Atiku said, definitely most Nigerians will agree, but that's the point. The point is that most Nigerians have been feeling bad in terms of the economy right before Atiku and his group took over. And when they took over and removed that which provides some relief the way they did, it makes things worse. Atiku didn't say anything strategic. He doesn't have much strategic thinking in what he was saying. Yes, Atiku, in what he was saying. He's basically singing the song that is being played on the public. That is his right. But leadership is not about that. What is leadership? Leadership is that you took office and you saw the problems. Number one, infrastructure is a problem in Nigeria. Security is a problem in Nigeria. Local production is a problem in Nigeria. These have been there for decades. So what the administration did was to put effort and money into infrastructure. Why? Because that brings economic goodness. Okay, there will be a lot of jobs. What does it do with security? Security has been bad before this administration took over. What did they do? They look at how can we support the security agencies. And you can read and find out a number of things they have done to make the military and the police strong to battle the insecurities. And they are holding governors and local governments accountable, which is what good leadership does. Because federal government cannot fight insecurity everywhere in the country. Therefore, by working with state government and local government, telling them you need to do your part, that is leadership, okay? Now, when you look at other things that the administration is doing, yes, Dangote Oil Refinery was started before, but this administration is facilitating it as much as they can so that by this time or before, in fact, in a month or two, the refinery will be working. That will help a lot with transportation, and with transportation, food costs should come down. With fighting security at the sources of food production, because food scarcity is number one thing holding Nigerian economy. Therefore, by focusing effort on fighting security in the areas that produce food, that is strategic, and that will pay dividend. So with that, and the refinery working, things will start coming down. That's why I said I would still think by August, September, things will start easing up.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Odiaja.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to come to you now, Mr. Anosike. You've heard everything that he has talked about, how he's in complete disagreement with what you said about Atiku, but still talking about the fact that Tinubu has managed to empower the security agencies, which is the holistic approach that this group was referring to when they said he's had tremendous success in the area of security. What do you have to say concerning that, particularly with focus on security?
What Dr. Udaja is saying is like a Russian trying to teach me things from apart by Chinua Achebe. Understand me? That's exactly what Dr. Udaji is saying. It's like a Russian trying to teach me things from apart. A book that was written in Igbo setting, and I'm an Igbo man. Then a Russian wants to teach me things from apart. So those infrastructure that he is saying, I don't know where they are. I don't know where they are. The thing that he's saying about security, I don't know what have been done. 3 days ago, 40 people were killed in Plateau State. And Plateau people are lamenting that 161 of their communities have been taken by Fulani herdsmen.
Yes.
Understand me? See what is happening in the southeast. Where in this country is safe? What was given to the police and the army? If you know, tell me.
Okay.
So you're saying. So, because of time, I don't want us to dwell too much on this, but you're saying that what Dr. Odiaja is referring to is not something that we're experiencing, it's not the reality that we're living in this country.
I say it's like a Russian teaching me about things from apart. Understand me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, that's an interesting take, particularly with reference to that. But quickly moving on. All right, Dr. Odiaja, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, because, Mr. Anosike said a number of things that I need to respond to. Okay, and I'll give you an example. You said you don't know where the infrastructure is. Well, infrastructure is not something you feel right away. Okay, you look at what Biden did here, and many Republicans were talking, well, it's nothing, even though they now support it. The infrastructure in Nigeria, the road project that will go from Lagos all the way to River, that is a major thing. That will bring a lot of jobs. It will bring people, communities together. And the other road projects, that is infrastructure. And I'll just give you that one example. In the military, do you know how many? I can find out, I can list them and send to you, or you can check. Number of aircrafts, helicopters, attack helicopters that Nigeria have purchased to fight insecurity. These are infrastructure, and they have raised the salaries of the military and police because you want them to do the work. That is important. Yes, security is there. Yet people are feeling terrible.
Dr. Daja, yes, Dr. Daja, I am living opposite Ojo Barracks, the biggest army barracks in West Africa. I'm living opposite Ojo Army Barracks. I'm not telling you that somebody told me. Whatever I tell you is what every other person can verify. And then the road project that you are talking about is a scam. Tinubu used that road project to empower his friend, Chagoris. His son, Sheyi Tinubu, is a board member of that high tech. That cannot happen in America where you are. So that road project you are talking about is a scam. Sure. No bidding, no bidding, no tender, no bidding, no tender.
Well, you're talking about the process. That's a different thing. I'm not talking about the process. I'm talking about things being done. Now, how they are being done, and what there is, sorry, how they are being done. Those are the logistics that I cannot really speak about.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Odiaja. Thank you so much. Truthfully, there's a point to what you're saying, and there's a point to what Mr. Anosike is saying. The realities of the average Nigerian in diaspora and the realities of the average Nigerian in Nigeria of a certain tax bracket is completely different. In the course of my talking earlier, I said that even the well-to-do, even the people who previously did not have any experience when it comes to the hustle and bustle of the daily life and what the economic pinch really felt like are currently feeling that. So the realities are different. And in as much as one might say that 1 year might be a short time for the extent of the infrastructure that has already begun to take effect, we're still talking about 1 year in office, and this is the bandwidth that we have to discuss this right now in this time period. But again, this is not all. We're moving on to the subject of economy. During the presentation of one of the ministry's performance 1 year into President Bola Tinubu's administration, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, revealed that the Nigerian economy is experiencing a positive growth rate of 2.99% that surpasses the 2.3% growth observed in the first quarter of 2023 before President Tinubu assumed power. Now, according to him, he's saying that this is as a result of the effectiveness, of President Tinubu's economic strategy. He highlighted specifically the area of agriculture, talking about the fact that it's growing and that the growth of that sector, agriculture specifically, is anticipated to have substantial impact on curbing inflation, which is significant at the moment. Food inflation is up to 33.2% at the moment, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. So if truly agriculture is anticipated to have an impact on curbing inflation, this is something that we are yet to see. And truthfully, we are experiencing food inflation, amongst other things, in the country at the moment. But my question to you now is, apart from what we are yet to see, with everything that is going on, particularly with inflation, and particularly with the food prices, transport, everything that connects to the average Nigerian feeding and existing, basically, when it comes to economy and the standard of living specifically, because that's what we're talking about. Can you attest to this assertion of economic growth, in your opinion? I'll start with you, Mr. Anosike.
Okay.
Would you agree that we've
do you know that a basket of tomatoes is 100,000 naira in the country now?
Yes.
Do you know that a pint of garri is 4,000 naira in this country now? Do you know that a bag of rice has gone back to 75,000 naira and the minimum wage is still 30,000 naira? Which means 2 months' salary of a Nigerian worker cannot buy you a bag of rice. And someone is talking about agriculture. Benue is known as the food basket of the country. Because of insecurity, Benue people are no more farming. Two people are no more farming. There's no farming in the country. And he's talking about increase in agriculture. Where? Understand me? Where is that coming? Increase in agriculture and the prices of food are still high. Understand me? So they say, believe this and you believe anything. Understand me? This is a government that said last time the Minister of Petroleum said that the government did not know that Dangote is importing crude from United States. A Minister of State for Petroleum. So for me, APC is a government of propaganda, government of deception, lies. Understand me? That's what APC stands. And that's what they are feeding those who don't know. They cannot tell that to me.
All right, let me come to you, Dr. Odiaja. You've heard, of course, what Mr. Anosike has said. He does not agree because, going again by what I said previously, the experiences of the average Nigerian when it comes to economy, when it comes to inflation, when it comes to how to feed on a daily basis. People are living on less than $1 on a daily basis. So talking about the economy growing from 2.3% to 2.99%, does this economic growth really speak to the reality that we're experiencing, or does this assertion of economic growth speak to the reality that is existing in the Nigerian economy currently?
Well, first of all, let me make this point. I agree with Mr. Anosike when it comes to how people are feeling, what people are feeling in terms of their pocket and so on. I agree. I think where I disagree is how to solve the problem, okay? And when I look at what the government is doing, I'm saying they are putting things that will solve those problems. That's what leaders do. So if you look at one thing in what the minister said that Nigerians need to pay attention to is he said the GDP is at 2.98%. What does that mean? What that means is that you have to compare with population growth. The population growth is 2.4%. That means positive GDP. Now, the average person that is feeling all this in Nigeria, or even here, we feel it too because we have people in Nigeria who will not know that. That will not translate immediately. In fact, that's why I said there will be some falling of prices 2 or 3 months from now, and then we'll go higher in terms of falling, but there will be up and down. So that is one key measure that you have to look at. And then he listed a number of things that support that. Even the Moody rating for Nigeria, which was B minus, but what Moody has done is to say we now add stability and positiveness to that Moody rating.
Okay.
What that means is that they are saying, based on how things are going, based on the reforms, based on the infrastructural things, those things will make Nigeria be stable for some time. You talk about insecurity in Benue, yes. But again, go back and see what is being done to make insecurity in Benue everywhere be less destructive. So again, I agree with how Nigerians are feeling, but the point is, are they doing things to make those things better? And my response is yes. I just noticed that here we are spending more than $100 a month today than what we spent 6 months or 1 year ago. Why? Despite the economy doing well overall, it has not translated down to average people, but it will. And that's the way I see Nigeria.
Well, I would like to join my faith with yours, particularly in response to it transcending down to the average Nigerian sooner than later. And you cannot blame critics for talking about the fact that they cannot put a lot of weight on the promises or the projections by the government, because time and time again, representatives of this administration, public officials, ministers will come and say that they project a certain thing to happen. And with time, sadly, critics have realized that even the average citizen does not experience the projections that they say that they project to have eventually. So not to blame anyone, but it's not unthinkable for you to see that the average Nigerian is finding it hard to believe the realities of these projections, pardon me. But of course,
don't communicate. Yes, I agree.
Thank you very much. But of course, there is different perspectives to this, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. But quickly, let's go for a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Political Roundup. We've talked about 1 year of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration and the effects or the possible experiences that people are talking about with reference to economy, security, agriculture. And now we're moving on to the next subject, which is a hot topic, particularly as it concerns Nigerian workers. The organized labor, comprising the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC), has once again turned down a new minimum wage offer from the federal government. This time, they rejected the federal government's proposal to raise the minimum wage to 60,000 naira for workers. Additionally, the organized labor had adjusted their stance from 497,000 as at last week to 494,000. Yes. And now a key member of the committee responsible for negotiating a new minimum wage has informed the media that the federal government and the organized private sector has suggested a 60,000 naira monthly minimum wage during today's meeting. Of course, this is completely different from the previously proposed 57,000 naira. And the reality is, in as much as these meetings are progressing, someone said to me today that it seems like they're beginning to price pepper and tomatoes on this particular subject. But the reality is, like it or not, it is a subject that is close to the average Nigerian's heart, or the average Nigerian worker's heart. Something that came up previously in the subject of this minimum wage is the reality of how much the Nigerian worker is suffering. And I say this because, with reference to what Mr. Anosike said earlier about the price of a bag of rice, if 30,000 naira is the current minimum wage before all of this conversation and negotiation, that tells you that 2 months minimum wage is what would take 2 months minimum wage, and even more is what would take you to buy one bag of rice, and that's just one bag of rice. That's nothing else. That can even cook you a full pot of jollof rice. But truth be told, the realities are currently tricky for Nigerian workers because we do not know where this conversation will head to at the end of the day. But now, let's talk about the fact that some states have not even adopted this 30,000 naira that we're talking about previously before this new conversation that we're having now about the negotiations. Do you think that this is something that the government should even stand to uphold first, even before talking about this current conversation about what the new minimum wage should be? Because if they've not upheld the previous one, what is the assurance that this will happen when this new minimum wage has been finalized? I'm starting with you, Dr. Odiaja.
Well, in a way, I'm disappointed. You mentioned that some states have not even adopted the current minimum wage of 30,000 naira. The 60,000 naira will not alleviate the problems in terms of cost of living, but it's double where it is now. What Labour is asking, I don't know where Nigeria can get money for that. And if Nigeria can afford it, all that will happen will be an inflation that they cannot manage. So I would think that somewhere they're going to meet around 100,000 naira, which would be reasonable. In fact, that would be what I would recommend if the government can afford it. Now, can they afford it? That's something that I'm sure there's a group working on that. If they can, I would say 100 would be very reasonable at this point. It will not solve all the problems. It will not necessarily make it that you can now afford what is high, but at least it will give some break to people. Nigerians, again, will have to understand, unfortunately, things will not go back to be where they were good. But the hope is that they will take on what is going on and do their own part in trying to manage what they have, which is not much now, but with local production, with scaling down on buying things that are not made in Nigeria, which should start from Tinubu all the way down, and things like that, things will get better. Minimum wage alone cannot and will not do it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that school of thought. Do you agree with that, or do you think the focus should still be on sorting out or promoting this current conversation about negotiation, particularly with the deadline being May 31st?
Well,
do you think the larger conversation is not the minimum wage?
To start with, salary is not meant to be enough. Salary is not meant to be enough, and I'm not a fan of minimum wage. I'm not really a fan of minimum wage. What I feel that these people should be negotiating is how to create an enabling environment, bring cost of energy down, bring cost of transport down. Understand? Because even if you are being paid at 30,000 naira, it can take you for some time.
You can still afford basic amenities.
Because Dr. Uda just suggested 100,000 naira. If government agrees 100,000 naira, the bread that you are buying 1,000 naira now, you are going to buy for 10,000 naira.
So you agree that it will cause inflation?
It will cause serious inflation. And when these people are negotiating, they're not even thinking, government can say, I will pay you 1 million, and your life will be worse than when you are receiving 30,000. Very, very easy. They will pay you that 1 million, increase the inflation, all that money will go back. It's a simple thing. So what they should be negotiating is how to reduce cost of things that are taking money from their pocket, like electricity, transport. Then create an enabling environment for companies to start producing. Once there's more demand than supply, prices of food commodities comes down. Understand me?
Yes.
Understand me? Now, I was very close to Theology as a governor of Abia State. Then his monthly allocation was 2.5 million. But he was spending 2.5 billion. But he was spending 1.4 billion on salaries every month, remaining 900 million. Now imagine 900 million that for infrastructure and other things is not enough.
Of course.
And again, they should know that all states are not equal. What Lagos State can pay, Kebbi State cannot pay it. That's why even though some are paying 30,000 now today, some states in the north are paying 10,000. So then somebody who couldn't pay 30,000, you now impose 100,000 on him. It wouldn't make sense. So my suggestion is let each state go and agree with their governor what they can pay. Because a governor...
So it doesn't have to be a harmonized minimum wage.
The states are not equal. What Rivers can pay, what Lagos can pay, Gombe cannot pay it. Sokoto cannot pay it. So Sokoto State should agree with their own NLC. This is what I can pay, and I'll make sure that it is regular. I'm not agreeing 100,000 naira in 4 months, you've not seen it.
Let's even bring this subject to the subject of private sector workers. Because truthfully, the minimum wage to a large extent applies majority to government workers, people who work in the public sector. Which
are not up to 5% of the total population.
Absolutely. And because that in and of itself is a challenge, what now becomes of the people who work in the private sector? Since this doesn't apply to them and their salaries are going to be what their salaries are going to be, then what now happens when they're negated from this conversation? And
once they agree on this minimum wage of 60,000 naira, the woman at Oyimbo will increase the prices of what she is selling there. Understand me?
Of course,
the barber will increase what he's charging before. Understand me? And this only affects about 5% of the population, while the other 80% will be suffering it.
All right. Let me take your final thoughts, Dr. Odeja, very quickly because we're out of time.
Well, there's no doubt that when you increase minimum wage, things will not necessarily go down. So I agree. That's why I keep emphasizing local production. Local production. Electricity. If what Dangote and his group are doing come out to beer, electricity and things like that, fuel and things that support electricity will go down. So yeah, I agree. Left to me, I would say don't push too much on the minimum wage. But labor always will do that because that's what labor does. It's up to the government and businesses, governors to look at other ways to make sure that that money has value.
Thank you very much.
The example he gave with Governor Oti is a good one. They need to look at how much they are using in administration and cost some money there, and so on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Odeaja. I'll take that as your final thoughts. Thank you very much also to Mr. Anosike. Thank you for joining us. Catch us again tomorrow at the same time on our YouTube channel, Voice of the People TV. And remember to follow us across all our social media platforms on at VOP TV Live. I am Sumto Ajamma. Good evening.